Hi, this is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Today's January 27th, 2020. I'm back from Davos. I had a lovely time there, lots of cool things to do, lots of interesting people to meet. And it was truly worth the investment of time and effort to get on out there and play with everybody. But back in the saddle, back here in the office, still have the pillows on the couch and the blanket. I sleep in the office more often than not. It's full musk with the Model 3, and things are moving pretty quickly. So in 2 days, we're going to go ahead and release the next update, milestone 3 for the ITN. This is the first week where we're actually going to start getting some aggregated statistics from a bunch of different sources. They existed, but they were siloed and fragmented and not quite where they needed to be. So we're going to start getting those statistics, and we'll discuss with Tim, Dedell, and others about how to publish them and what format would be nice to publish them from. The community itself has been actually publishing statistics on a weekly basis, usually every epoch, every few epochs they publish them. So a lot of good things coming. A ton of ADA has been delegated. There's a ton of stake pools that have been set up. People are still having lots of issues with the network, and that's to be expected. And we're working real hard to fix those things. So every milestone that comes out are corrections and solutions to that. It's quite unfortunate that we'll have a totally different network model with the Haskell Shelley testnet, but that one has been validated through formal methods, so we feel a lot better about its stability than what was released with the ITN. It's important to keep a sense of what the goalposts are, and it's important to keep a sense of why we did the ITN. The purpose of the ITN was to talk about the business user experience of staking. We really had a model for how we thought staking should be done. We had kind of a user experience that we had planned for that. And by pulling all the pieces together, we were, for the first time ever, to go from the lab to reality and build up a bunch of people who wanted to come along that ride with us. It's important to understand that when you release software that way, coming along the ride with us means that you need a lot of patience, and this is not a consumer product. But it was never intended to be a consumer product, the incentivized testnet. It was intended to be a product for just that population, sophisticated stake pool operators and people who were interested in delegating their stake, and just so that we could get a really good sense of what that experience is and how that experience should work. And from that perspective, mission accomplished. We've learned an enormous amount. We've gotten a whole tsunami wave of business and technical requirements, which are working their way into the Haskell product. And we've managed to put together a great community of people that are willing to go the distance with us. So Dedell Patel, who is the product manager responsible for the staking user experience and user interface, as well as the staking concepts, he will begin in February coming up with a plan for how we're going to transition the Rust incentivized testnet stake pools to operate on the Haskell testnet, which will come out shortly thereafter. So basically, we can take these near 900 people, entities that have registered stake pools, and we can find a way to make sure that they can get their infrastructure working on the Haskell side in anticipation for the launch of the mainnet. We've also gotten a lot of testing of the wallet backend, which is a shared piece of infrastructure between the Rust side and the Haskell side. And there's been a litany of improvements and modifications and new APIs and other such things that we've gained from this experiment. So that's the reality of scoped tests, and that's the reality of alpha software. It can be tremendously frustrating for certain people, but it's always important to remember where the goalposts are, and we're very happy about what we've been able to do. Now, we are now on a 2-week sprint structure with the Haskell side, and every 2 weeks, we see those sprints coming through, and we're starting to do postmortems on them, and we're collecting lots of data on our velocity. Things are looking pretty good, and things are basically where they need to be for this year. January and the end of December are always frustrating months when you're talking about a product or project perspective, because in December, you practically lose 2 weeks of time, and in January, you lose about 1 to 2 weeks of time just because of the nature of holidays. Everybody goes on vacation, everybody has something to do, and even when they're there, they're not really there because they're dealing with family and friends and travel and all kinds of things. And relatives are staying with them. So productivity just tends to go way down during that time frame. So we didn't really get a full month with January, but the second half of January, we've really seen things pick back up, and velocity is looking very good with the second half. So we're quite happy with that. In terms of the commercial side of the project, things are very much picking up. Jerry, our commercial director, is doing amazing work, and he's creating kind of a consolidated, unified commercial strategy. The Cardano Foundation is working on a unification play to align the commercial and product strategy between Emergo, IOHK, and the Cardano Foundation together. And we're using PwC as the moderator for that. So starting in February, PwC is going to start doing a lot of prep work, take a lot of inputs from what McCann has done, what we've done, what Emergo's done, what the foundation has done. And then the capstone there will be a multi-day workshop, and then they're going to basically work with us to create a consolidated strategy for our go-to-market strategy for Cardano. We've been operating on the IOHK side with one, but it's important that we bring Cardano Foundation and Emergo into the fold, and they also have a chance to take what they've independently come up with and unify it with what we've come up with. And the particular skunk works at PwC that specializes in this has a team that's quite experienced with cryptocurrencies, and they have a lot of Fortune 500 clients, and they can help us give us a steer of what Western enterprises are looking for, and we can make sure that everything is aligned, from the way that we deploy software to the way we discuss it, the way we market it, and so forth. We've also been really pushing product marketing up, and there's a lot of USPs within the Cardano ecosystem that do require more tender love and care. For example, I'm deeply disappointed that the proof of stake article on Wikipedia, as an example, doesn't reference Ouroboros, when we actually are the first venture in the entire world to actually fully solve proof of stake as a problem of computer science. So it's very important that we bridge that gap and we get very good content out to market to explain what we've done. The 55 academic papers we've written weren't just for fun or for experience or just to get people through grad school or to get people academic appointments. These are practical industrial papers, and the fact that they're getting into industrial conferences is a good indication of their usefulness. So to me, it's extremely important that we go from the science world, where we've clearly won, and make sure that the regular world, especially institutional investors, fully appreciate what we have been able to produce and the types of problems we've been able to solve. So there's going to be a big effort on product marketing all throughout the month of February to make sure that we take those things that are locked up in academia right now and explain them in an understandable way for people, so that people can actually get what we've done, the problems we've solved, and why Cardano is a very special product. Our community's done a really good job trying to do this, and there's been some piecemeal efforts from Sebastian, the Cardano Effect, and other channels, and we really do appreciate that, and that's great. But it is important that it comes from straight from the horse's mouth, and this type of product marketing is in scope for IOHK. So we're going to make sure that we take the time necessary to explain these things and make sure that proper articles are written and that we can get into Wikipedia in the event that their commercial censorship stops. Great progress there, but much, much, much more to do. We're trying to also create a consolidated way for exchanges to list Cardano. And we've had a lot of commercial conversations with our exchange partners, ones who have listed us and ones who are considering listing us. And we're trying to make sure that we have the lowest cost, highest quality infrastructure to maintain, for everything from the Explorer infrastructure to how the wallet backend works, the types of things you can do with the command line, and deployability, either into a WASM environment, a JavaScript environment, just things like using Docker and so forth. So we're learning a lot from those conversations, and we're getting a lot of business requirements, and we're working those into our weekly sprints or bi-weekly sprints to ensure that those things get done. Next month will be the first month where our product managers begin communicating with you as I do, meaning that they'll be making external facing videos and hopefully AMAs. Parnaju is the senior product manager behind Cardano, and she has a whole group of product managers under her. And so she and her product team will begin on a monthly basis doing a kind of a data dump of what did we learn that month and what have we done, what have we accomplished, and where are we at, and where are we going. We've historically, as a project, had difficulty with estimation. There's a lot of reasons for that, mostly stemming from bad processes and systems, as well as some personnel changes that needed to be made, and also changes in development philosophy. So that said, Nick Nafak has been for over a month meticulously working with a skunkworks within the company to help us get much better product projections of what is going into a sprint and also how many sprints are required to satisfy a particular backlog of features. So estimation has been a huge priority of ours, especially in the month of January, so that when we say a date, we can have a firm commitment to that date. So the fruits of those labors will really start coming to play probably towards the end of February, and we can give significantly more accurate dates on launch than what we've done historically. That said, there's still much to do, but we have over 80 pages of documentation, a traceabilities, kind of a test matrix. Every single issue required to resolve and feature required to resolve for Shelley has been brought out into the open and light, and we've had a lot of exhaustive meetings making sure that they're properly documented. And we've discovered a few extra features and issues that we were aware of, but they weren't properly recorded, so they weren't put into project estimation. And we're finding ways to satisfy that in a reasonable period of time so we can properly scope things. But Nick has done a phenomenal job, and a lot of sleepless nights and weekends just getting basic things done that were long overdue. And it's typically what happens when you go from a science-based approach to more of a practical engineering-based approach. The people who are oftentimes very good at doing the science and formal methods work are not as experienced as they really need to be on the agile methodology or the product delivery side. So you need certain people to bridge those gaps, train people, and bring people into that mindset. The good news is it's a lot harder to do science and formal methods than it is to do agile work. So upgrading people to have these skill sets and making sure that we follow a common source of truth is not a Herculean task. It's just more of a task of patience and methodology. So we're certainly working in that direction. But my hope is to be able to give firm dates sometime in February for when we feel the Shelley mainnet is going to launch. We, of course, will continue working on the incentivized testnet in the interim. And our focus primarily right now is network stability. We had a 4 to 6 week program starting in early January when the team came back online to basically make that network far more stable. And we're about halfway through that agenda. So starting Wednesday, there's going to be another update, Jormungandr 0.88. And of course, every Wednesday thereafter, we will continue doing an update until we get that network where it needs to be. But progress is definitely being made, and that team is definitely working hard. Some of that team is based in Asia, and this week they had Chinese New Year. Happy New Year, everyone. So unfortunately, that team wasn't completely at full strength. And again, this is the frustration of January and December as months to do product development. They're the absolute worst months to launch things. But moving beyond January into February, there really aren't that many disruptions or holidays we have to worry about. So things are moving along. And I do apologize for those of you who are having a lot of frustrations with the ITN, but that's the nature of an alpha product, and that's the nature of a product that is not intended for consumers. I have seen some things on Reddit, and I have seen some things on Twitter and other channels where people are attempting to conflate the user experience of Rust with what will be the user experience of the Haskell product that we launch. It's incredibly important to understand that the Haskell product is based on completely different code, and it's been built for the purpose of being a consumer product that works on your everyday computer. So there's a lot more stuff in that to make sure that you won't have connecting to network or other such things that just simply was not put into the Rust product because of the nature of the customers who are using that Rust product. So you'll have a very different, much better user experience, especially on the consumer side with the Haskell code than you will have with the Rust code. And this is by design. And it's one of the reasons why it takes a lot more time to get the Haskell product out versus the Rust product. The Rust product has always been a update as quickly as we can, fly by the seat of your pants, alpha style product, which was all about testing hypotheses and building a relationship with the community. The Haskell product is the product that exchanges use. And it's the product that you use, and it's the product that's safe to use your money with, and it's the product that is also security audited and so forth. So it's very important that people understand that differentiation, and it's very important that people understand that these are just simply different experiences, and one does not imply the other. And we're very excited to be able to actually launch the first major milestone of that product in February. There are two updates that are coming in February. One is a hard fork, that's the OBFT hard fork, and we will announce a formal date very soon about that, exactly when in February that's going to strike. And then the other is the launch of the Byron reboot. So all of the new Haskell code with the Haskell wallet backend. And we will announce that date as well. We're right now talking to Tatiana, Aparna, and others who are involved in the release management cycle of exactly when is that going to hit and when do we feel good about that. Well, this is the foundation upon which all code for the entire Cardano roadmap will be launched. So this code base has been rewritten 3 times by different teams and with different understandings. The final time was the time using rigorous methodology, using formal methods, using quick check, these types of things. So we're very comfortable in this foundation and we understand it at a very, very deep level. And all of the Shelley features are being built on top of that sprint by sprint and being brought to market very quickly. The nice part is because this code is so well written and so well understood, it has high velocity when we add new features to it. So once this Byron reboot code is in market, that is the code base upon which will evolve to the Shelley mainnet. Now, in parallel, there's a testnet stream, and when that Shelley testnet hits, that's where we're going to verify that all of the code we've built on top of the Byron node that's being deployed next month is working the way we thought. And that's the code which the stake pool operators will build their stake pools on top of and verify their infrastructure is working. And once that's been done and the QA has given us the green light, we can just simply do a hard fork and upgrade the Byron node to the Shelley node. That said, it's just a joy working with that code and working with those teams. And the transition from science to delivery is almost done. We're really happy with the output. And what's very nice is the delta from Byron to Shelley is significant and almost done, but the delta from Shelley to Goguen is much less significant. So we should be able to take care of those 2 major milestones this year easily. There's still a lot of open questions about what constitutes the Basho release and the Voltaire release. And this is one of those, how long is a piece of string type of deal. So with Basho, we could be very aggressive and embrace a litany of things like ledger-based sharding and so forth. But it looks like we're going to choose a more conservative plan, which will still accommodate the needs for having fast finality, being able to do micropayments, being able to get high TPS throughput, and so forth, because the base ledger itself is so performant. The base ledger is at least 5 times faster than what Ethereum is currently brought to market with its proof of work model. And this is unoptimized. And further optimization through over time, given that we have a superior network stack, I could easily see that number improving more so. And that's in a single shard environment. So using an overlay protocol to accelerate and give fast finality and the ability to process payments at a low fee rate, it means that we can achieve pretty much everything that most people would want to do from Cardano as a payment system or Cardano as a smart contract platform without embracing a ledger sharding agenda that other competitors are choosing to do. It would add unnecessary complication to the product. The good news there then is that a parallel team can begin implementation of Hydra prior to finishing Shelley and Goguen with an anticipation of how these things are going to be built on top. As for Voltaire, the primary collection of business and technical requirements for Voltaire will come as an output of the CIP process. And really, there's a coordination on our side of 3 separate teams to just basically get all of infrastructure and ideas ready for those final business and technical requirements. In particular, we've been doing exhaustive voting research for over 3 years out of University of Lancaster under Binching Zhang's leadership. And he's produced several papers which are groundbreaking and have been sent to major conferences such as NDSS. So we have a high degree of confidence and understanding in how to do voting. Second, we have a team of people working out of our Cypriot entity, IOHK Research, working within a consortium with GuardTime, IBM Research, University of Edinburgh, and other organizations, specifically about decentralized software updates. And we've written a near 40-page paper exhaustively explaining how one can do that in a cryptocurrency-esque setting. So finally, we have a team of people looking at it from a different perspective that has just started thanks to a subsidy from the Cardano Foundation at the Berkman Klein Center at Harvard. And that group of people is going to basically consolidate with what we've already done with the European Union and what we're doing at Lancaster. And these 3 things together will constitute a pretty good collection of ideas. Then when the business and technical requirements come in from the CIP committee, we can basically scope something that we feel is reasonable for a voting system and a treasury system with incentivized participation with an intent to launch that in 2020. This is a high priority item for us because we intend on using that system for the next 5 years of research and development for Cardano and being able to take Cardano to the next level. But obviously, we'd need that system in place before we could utilize that system. So we have the infrastructure in place, we have the teams in place, and now we're going to work with the foundation to make sure that the CIP process concludes in a reasonable time frame so that we can get the proper business and technical requirements so that as Goguen is finishing, the team working on Goguen can roll over immediately to the Voltaire side and within a reasonable time horizon, pull these things into the ledger rules and into the system. So we're moving in the right direction for that, and we've done a lot of the foundational research, and we've built up a corpus of knowledge and capability. So it's less about theory at this point, and it's more about just making strategic bets on what we think will be the easiest to maintain. This is among the hardest of all problems in not only the cryptocurrency space, but in open source software in general. How do you have intentful communication? How do you ensure high participation behind your voting system? And also, how do you eschew rational ignorance as people are asking to do things? And then, what level of consent is required for the system to evolve into a new state, especially if amongst those who are voting, you have less than a majority present, which is generally the case with a lot of these types of systems. And for example, in the US election system, less than half of the people eligible to vote voted. So the current US president and the prior US president were actually in a position where they were elected by a minority of the eligible voters instead of a majority. So then, do they truly have a democratic mandate? So similarly, to avoid hard forks, it's important that key stakeholders are involved, or else when a fork happens, that fork does not have a democratic consent. And as a consequence, you could see something like a Cardano Cash or a Cardano Classic. So we've done as much as we can on our end on the research side to basically say, well, here is the state of the art, and here are the sets of tools that are available. But then we now have to reach consensus on what will the social system be. And the Cardano Foundation is now in a position where it is capable of leading for that. So lots to do, but not much science to do. It's just more practical stuff and good old-fashioned code being written. So things are looking good. I look forward to the product update next month, and you guys hang in there. And as we start now consolidating statistics on the ITN, IOHK will probably publish some sort of weekly summary of those statistics, maybe next week or the week after, but certainly not too long down the road. If you're having issues with the incentivized testnet, you're not the only one. A lot of people have, and historically or currently, and that's to be expected given the nature of the software. And product estimation is finally starting to get where it needs to go. So we'll be able to give you guys some very solid, nice dates pretty soon. On the commercial side, we're trying to align all the strategies of the organizations together. PwC is the entity that we've negotiated with to work with us on that. There's still some final things to do on the contract and the kickoff date, but that'll be resolved very soon. And then based on the output of that process, we should all be directly aligned. The first wave of marketing is also kind of in a beta state and ready for me and my chief of staff and my marketing directors and so forth to review. And then, of course, we'll run it through another iteration. This week, I'm getting a full presentation on that, and a lot of other little things to do. We obviously at Davos met with lots of interesting people, from Matt Sorum, the Guns N' Roses drummer, to several heads of state or former heads of state. We met with a lot of fund managers. We met with a lot of people in the finance world. We met with a lot of Fortune 500 companies. And so, well, things are certainly evolving on that commercial side. And there's a high degree of interest for Cardano as a platform. And it's very, very important that we make sure that that interest can be matched with real life support so that those interest points can turn into products and market. So we're certainly kind of chipping away at that. I will be at Satoshi Roundtable this year. I will also be at Suits and Spooks, where I'm meeting with General McChrystal and several other key figures. And we're certainly bringing some people on board IOHK who can help us make sure that we can better manage a decentralized environment and make sure that we can offload some of our responsibilities to the community. We've already seen some of that offloading happening. IOHK gave a grant to the Cardano Effect, and now that fund ending has switched from IOHK to the Cardano Foundation. And once a treasury system's in play, I think they're probably going to be one of the first entities to be funded by the Cardano blockchain directly. They do great work for the community. Similarly, we'd like to get an aggressive meetup group strategy, and we'd like for that funding structure to come from the Cardano Foundation. We've already had some discussions about an aggressive Africa community building strategy. Speaking of Africa, my director of African operations asked me to record a quick message for our fans in Nigeria who attended a recent meetup group So hello, Nigeria. We do love you guys. And thank you so much for being great Cardano supporters. And of course, I will be in Lagos at some point this year when I do the Africa tour, because I'm going to Addis Ababa, Lagos, and I'll be in Kigali and go down to South Africa and many other places. So I'll see all of you soon. So lots to do. All right. Well, that's our update. I try to keep them short and sweet. And I'll see you guys next week, and we'll just keep working at it. Thank you all for your love and support. And thank you all for your criticism. It helps, both the support and the criticism. And thank you for keeping the faith. Until next time, take care, guys.